Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Morning Bible. We are back once again in Luke, Luke chapter 6. We might finish it off today, we might not, depends how far through we get. It's just really dense, full of really good stuff. This is a big chunk of Jesus' teaching in Luke where things aren't necessarily happening a lot. Instead, Jesus is just teaching us loads and loads of knowledge. These books are actually quite short when you think about it. The fact that this was the Son of God on earth for 33 years, and the books that we get about him are about this long. It's like, so the lessons that are in them really, really matter. They're really important. So let's go for it. So we are at verse 37, Luke chapter 6. Let me just have a little cough. Cool. Let's go. Judge not. This is Jesus still talking, still sort of teaching the people, his disciples primarily. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. That's such a good little chunk. So let's go through bit by bit and see what Jesus is saying here. So judge not and you will not be judged. So essentially he's saying, look, you're not here to be telling people whether they're good people, whether they're bad people, whether they're right or wrong. And right off the top, I'm going to clarify, this isn't in a legal sense. This isn't like is this person guilty or not guilty? This isn't Jesus saying sort of throw out laws and courts and things like that. This is Jesus saying, in a personal sense, don't judge what is in the hearts of the people around you. Don't judge them as being good people or bad people or anything like that, because that's for God to do only, because only God is truly good. So don't judge the people around you and you won't be judged, is essentially what you get. Condemn not and you will not be condemned. So that's taking the judgment thing a step further. So if you look around at the people around you and you say, oh, I judge that person's really horrible, they're an awful person, they're really bad, I hate them. And then you take that a step further to actually condemning them. So you actually say something to them about that, or you treat them badly or anything like that as a result of the judgment that you've made. The passage is very clear. It says you'll be condemned essentially if you do that, but if you don't condemn them, then you won't be condemned. And that isn't saying, if someone does something that breaks the law, you shouldn't call the police or anything like that. This is saying in a personal sense, like don't attack people's character, don't judge their character yourself. Forgive and you will be forgiven. So this is a different one. So this isn't saying you won't be forgiven, this is saying you will be forgiven if you forgive those around you. We've talked a lot so far in these videos about the forgiveness that God offers. That's such a huge part of Jesus' time on earth, is him coming down to actually offer forgiveness to the people who are here. And so he's saying, that's the model of how you should be when you're living here. You should be forgiving people. Give and it will be given to you. So another time this is saying, be charitable. It doesn't necessarily mean just give money. It could mean give some of your things, give some of your time, give some of your effort. Help out with things. Be a generous person. Give yourself to people. Help people. Do what you can and do it out of the kindness of your heart. Don't do it, like we said last time, don't do it expecting rewards, but do it because it's the good thing to do. Do it because God tells you to do it. And because God has given us an example of him doing it throughout history. This is really, I love this little bit right here. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. That's such a beautiful translation of that phrase. I don't know what the original phrase is, but that translation is absolutely beautiful. It's saying, where it follows on directly from give and it will be given to you. It says good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. You get what you have given, you get given back to you, but it's running over. It's this abundant goodness For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. So what measure you use, what goodness you give, will be given back to you. And we talked yesterday about how you don't give with an expectation of reward. And so this isn't talking about earthly reward, this is talking about heavenly reward. This is saying, the good things that you do in the earth around you now will be given back to you in equal measure once you get into heaven. And so that's like a really lovely little chunk to sort of open up with, a really beautiful way of looking at it. And so let's go on. So verse 39, Jesus also told them a parable. So a parable is basically a little story that is a metaphor for something else, essentially. Usually there's a moral in it. It'll be, he'll tell a story about a farmer and it'll be a metaphor about God, that kind of thing. He uses language and stories that people can relate to, people can understand. And so, let's read what this one says. It says, can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? Can one person who's doing wrong, who doesn't see the error of their ways, lead another person who's doing wrong? Surely that's just going to go badly in the end. A disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone, when he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. So you have a teacher who has knowledge, a disciple who doesn't have as much knowledge. The disciple is not above the teacher. The disciple, once he gets fully trained, they will be on the same rung, essentially. And this is the key bit. Jesus says, why do you see a speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me take that speck that is in your eye, when you yourself do not see the log that is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So what is he talking about with a speck and a log? So it's kind of like a speck is a tiny, tiny little thing, and a log is huge. It's like a log of wood. Big, big thing. Like, how does that fit into your eye? It's it's like hyperbole. It's exaggeration that Jesus is using here. But he's saying, you can walk through life and you can look around and see like, oh, that person's done this tiny thing that's wrong. I'm going to call him out on it. I'm going to judge him for it. I'm going to condemn him for it. I'm going to make sure he knows that he's done wrong. While equally, you've done something way, way more wrong. You've got a huge log in your eye compared to the speck that he's got in his eye. But you're not dealing with that. You're ignoring that so that you can criticize someone else. And Jesus is pointing out, it's like, look, you need to deal with the big problems in your own life. Deal with the big things that are wrong in your own heart, in your own behaviour. You've got to sort them out before you can start sorting out the tiny little things that other people are doing wrong. So he's saying basically, it's to the extent of let he who is without sin cast the first stone, which is another thing that Jesus talks about later. So if you don't know what that is, don't worry. But it's essentially saying, look, you need to sort things out in your own life before you can sort someone else's life out. And so how would anything get done? Surely if there's no one here to judge people, there's no sort of form of overall justice of people's character, then how is the world going to function? Well, we have a God who is perfect, a God who doesn't have a log in his eye, doesn't have a speck in his eye, doesn't have anything in his eye. God who is completely without sin and without fault. And so that God is the God who can judge us. And so our place isn't to stand in God's shoes and try and judge the people around us for the things they do wrong, because at the end of the day we're all doing things that are wrong. We're all falling short. And so God is the only one who can actually stand above it all and judge people. And that judgment doesn't necessarily mean bad judgment. We see earlier in the passage when it talks about good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. It's talking about grain. So if you have a big measure of grain, then that big measure of grain is getting given back to you by God. And so he's basically saying, look, the good things that are in your own heart, God sees those. God doesn't just see bad things and throw you out. God sees the good things. He is a God who loves you and who wants you in community with him. And so he is a God who's going to be really fighting for you. I think we'll leave it there for today. We can do the tree and its fruit and building a house on the rock tomorrow. I think that'll be a good little length of passage to do. But yeah, really, really good passage. I like it a lot. It's the fact that Jesus sort of calls people hypocrites as well. He's like, you hypocrite, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the speck that is in your brother's. Yeah, it's just something that we all need to be thinking about. I know I do it all the time. You need to be thinking about what are the problems in your own heart, deal with those before you start walking around telling everyone that they're awful people and blah blah blah. Not that I do that, but you know, we've all thought it at some point. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay indoors, protect the NHS, save lives, all of that. Wash your hands, of course. Only do one exercise a day and that kind of thing. Yeah, won't be in lockdown for much longer, I'm sure. But yeah, much love, and I'll see you all tomorrow.